Good morning, everybody. Take
Good
that
morning.
red X off of your microphone there, Jason.
Hold on a second.
Happy Friday.
Right? Oh, wait a minute. You all can see me. Because I got presentable.
There you are.
I'm going for my coffee. I'll be right back.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, love. No, okay.
My son gave me a Yeti mug for Mother's Day, and it keeps the coffee hot for a long time. So, Quentin, you would appreciate that.
What is it?
I love all the Yeti stuff.
I know, right? I didn't think I needed it, but I said thank you and started using it, and I'm happy.
I have a desk warmer for a mug. So whatever I have just stays warm through the whole day.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Which I told Quentin about this. I was so excited. And he just made a face and said, sounds like burned coffee. So
Better look at the glass half full.
Ah,
yeah.
Sometimes the glass is just dirty. Doesn't matter what's in it.
But actually with this whole thing, I've switched to tea. So I don't think you can burn tea.
you can make it too strong, though. Bitter.
You can, but the warmer won't do that.
No,
Right?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the one thing I've learned about Zoom meetings is that my glasses are the absolute wrong prescription for this distance. Like it's too far away to see clearly, and if I take them off, it's too close to see clearly. So if you see me putting them on and off, all day during the entirety of the call. It's because I can't see anyone at all in either circumstance.
I think you should take them off during dramatic moments.
That's like this. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now I know what to do.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Who said that? Wendy? You kind of sound like you're in a barrel.
I am in the girls' room on the bottom bunk with a bunch of stuffed animals and pillows because we had a big homeschooling disaster right before this. And the solution was that one of the kids gets to use my desk at the moment. So that might be why I sound like I'm in a cave.
Now you better. Yeah.
Well, I'll brag for a moment before everything starts. My grandson went through his graduation yesterday.
Aw,
They're
So-
wonderful.
He is all done officially. He was done a while ago, but it's official now.
Time to get him in real estate.
He is headed off to Boulder to college. And
Boulder is a lot like Charlottesville.
yeah, you know, when I was out in Colorado, I never went to Boulder, so I don't really know, just what I read and stuff like that. Other people.
My
have
younger
said.
sister went there and loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's far from home.
it is. It is. And I think that's what he wants, you know, get away and explore and spread his wings.
Nice. Well, my daughter works for a great company in Denver. So if he if he has a change of heart, needs a job, they're always
He needs a job now so he can afford to go.
they're always hiring. Well, they may not now, but they will be.
What kind of a place is it, Pam?
It's too long to describe, but yeah, look it up. It's called Guild Education.
Okay.
Their downtown mall was designed by the same people that designed our downtown mall.
Yeah, and you
In
can see
Boulder,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
open.
interesting.
It's just bigger. Theirs is bigger than ours.
Is it just us on here? Or are we? No, sorry, everybody.
Are we late to the party, Pam?
No, we were early. I didn't want to hijack. There's a lot of 411 on here. Hey, Donna.
Pam.
Getting you that book, girl.
Yeah. Especially since I went back to the office to find it. I'm like, I think I gave that to Pam.
Did you look in my office by chance to see if there was one there?
No, I don't like taking things out of people's offices.
Fair enough.
Hi, Quentin.
good morning.
Holler.
Oh, he dressed up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Is it a
Stay at this
removable-
much longer and you're going to have to shave your head again.
You know, I keep trimming up the sides. When you reach my age, there's always that moment of, if I cut it all off, will it come back?
I mean, Quentin, I was expecting at least a tuxedo t-shirt.
You know, I have a shirt that says realtors need closure, but it's so dark it doesn't read well on the camera. So
Your age. There are a lot of us older than you.
Hey, Joe, I'm missing your CNBC scrolling through there.
Yeah, someone told I don't pay because I keep the stock market going on behind me just so I can keep up to date on that type of stuff. And someone was telling me it's very distracting. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll turn that off so there's no stock ticker going on behind me.
I'll have to share sometime off camera what my son shared with me last night regarding stocks. He's super excited.
Nice.
Looking forward to it. Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate you coming on at 10 o'clock for our Virginia Regional Agent Preparedness call. Joe Martin going to be Masters of Ceremonies today. Hopefully I won't get kicked off this thing and you guys will return back next week. So before we got the slideshow going. So thank you, Kiana. I've had some last minute things I wanted to throw in there. So bear with us there. So let's go to kick this thing off. Let's go to the first slide here for the agenda. So opening remarks, we do have a video and we'll be getting that out next week. We've been collaborating with all of the market centers to get pictures, videos, and we've got two different individuals putting that together. So we should have some really awesome highlights for the agents and market centers to see what we did as a company throughout the West Virginia region to give back. Some of that obviously being dollars donated, and then some areas within the state able to actually give back some hours, obviously being aware of COVID. So let's go to the next slide. So some Red Day highlights. These is what we've gotten submitted so far. We'll get updates on this as more and more of the market centers get their finalized numbers, but we had over 14 communities, organizations served during Red Day last Thursday, over almost 54,000 raised and over 105 volunteer hours with 291 volunteers throughout the region. So I just want to do from a regional leadership standpoint, say thank you to everybody that engaged and gave either dollars or hours back to the communities that we serve. And I just want to sit there and let everybody understand that you really did impact people that are less fortunate and in situations where they really need our help as a community leader. I think this is one of the best parts about our culture is being able to slow down and give back and really have an impact, especially during COVID. So I just want to say thank you from KW and the region themselves. Let's go into the next slide, please. So there is no failure. You win or you learn. Either one is okay. So obviously coming from Gary Keller here, I think it's important as entrepreneurs during this time is it's very easy to justify sitting back on your couch and waiting for safety, security, and some type of strong foundation of like, where does real estate go? You know, we've got this kind of anxiety right now of like, we don't know what the future holds based on, do we get a vaccine? What is the Fed doing with money coming in? How am I going to cover my bills? Am I going to get transactions? And I've got customers or clients wondering, should I list now? Should I buy now? And all these things are the new normal, right? That before it was very clear, there wasn't this whole COVID situation going on, and we're looking for a new normal. And what I would inspire everybody to do on this call is to understand that you have to take control of your life as well as your business. And this goes back to one of the personal perspectives around victim mentality. Are you going into victim mentality and waiting for other people to do things and taking excuses around your life? Or are you going to an empowerment mindset and saying, how do I curate, course correct, and create a new normal that empowers me to control my life and my business? So the next slide, I think, is a very important visual about what we're going through. So when you look at a new normal, and we're going into a new normal being like, how does real estate move forward? You know, how do we meet with clients? I used to do it as, in person. Now we got to go virtual. I used to do open houses. Can't do that, or at least in the northern part of the state for the most part. But also, how do we look at it and ask a better question, right? Instead of saying, oh, I can't do that anymore. What if the question was, how do I reinvent my business? How do I curate and create a different way of doing business that is more efficient for my time and potentially could give a better experience to my clients? And this is where you have to think about, there's a creation, and humans fundamentally don't like change. It used to work. This was my system. I got to change. Well, you got into real estate to be an entrepreneur and your own boss. So you should like the creative juices flowing. You should like that innovation and the ability to create something completely new. So you create it, you release that idea, and typically we have a lot of energy, but it doesn't go as planned. So you see where it says death or dead valley. Basically, your expectations don't meet reality. And when your expectations don't meet reality, you tend to have a negative feeling about the situation, right? So this is the whole idea of you go to Starbucks and you're expecting your coffee to be hot and there's no milk in it, and you get there and it's cold and there is milk in it, right? So expectations don't meet reality. You have a negative experience. So what ends up happening is you keep moving forward through Dead Valley and you end up morphing or pivoting whatever your original plan was. You start to grab traction over time. That becomes a model that you can replicate. From that replication model, you end up scaling and then you start to harvest. So that's where you see the money and time scales start to increase, right? That over time, your money comes up, and this curve is actually the implementation of a new idea in your business. So I think when you look, thank you, Gwen. So when you look at time and you look at a new idea, this is a point where you have to understand that reality is you have to create a new way of business. And that's the normal, like the time, the new pivot, and then money will come from that. So I just want everybody on this call to really understand that's what you're going through as the new normal. So let's go ahead into the next slide, please. So just some COVID updates with Forward Virginia. So the majority of the state begins the Forward Virginia outside of Northern Virginia. So let's go into some numbers here for this week. So as you can see, within Maryland, you're at 43,000 in total cases tested positive, about 2,000 total deaths. You've got 34,000 in Virginia with about a little over 1,000 deaths. DC has the most, the testing is the most erratic at 7,700 with 400 deaths in DC. So we're starting to see a flattening and also a decline in certain parts of our areas. And you're looking at that 14-day steady, flat, or declining for Maryland as well as Virginia. Going to West Virginia. West Virginia, we've got 1,500 positive cases within the state with 70 residents' deaths. So it's obviously the lowest in regards to the region. Let's go forward. And now somebody that looks a lot better on camera than I do, Quentin Beckham down in our Charlottesville office, the OP, is going to be moderating today's content on your Oasis in the desert. So Quentin, floor is yours, buddy.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for having us. That picture of me, which we could take down, is from my youngest daughter's wedding, and it's the last photo of me in a suit.
Yeah.
And so people just keep it around. So don't expect that again anytime soon. We have several really amazing agents from our company here. And I wanted to just share some really practical information. We were talking about how it's easy to get frustrated when things don't meet our expectations. And I know for me personally, I can see that, you know, I call somebody and the phone rings 3 times and they haven't picked up. Well, I'm not going to leave them a voicemail. So I hang up immediately and I send a text. And then I stand tapping my finger. And we're just so trained to have immediate results. And when you take these kinds of people that are in real estate and you move them out of their sphere and now you're in your office, and your office is at home, I think the tendency to get frustrated and lose productivity is really, really high because we have to rework a little bit how we operate and get the job done. And so we've had some people that are terribly successful with that. And I wanted to bring them on so that they could tell you really some practical ways to grab control of your day. We talked about the Dead Valley. Even if we're in the middle of that, I want you to build this little oasis of productivity and growth and a space where you are no longer being frustrated, but you're stepping into the new space that we're all living in and continuing to work, continuing to be productive, and continuing to have resources to help your community. So I'm going to tag it right on over to Jason. And I know he's here somewhere. Jason has been with us for, how long is it now, Jason?
I think in Charlottesville, KW, about 4 years.
About 4 years, and then has been working as the lead agent on my team, and really segued very, very well into being productive at home. And so I just wanted to quiz you a little bit about that.
Sure.
So we could all benefit from that. Jason is somebody I refer to as psychotically organized. And so I thought it would be really good to have him be here with us. So our first big question, what do you think has been the biggest challenge to staying productive, moving from where you work mostly out of an office, moving to home and having these new restrictions put in place?
I think for me, in the first 2 weeks, it was my kids. And our lives essentially blew up in our faces because I think our generation with child rearing were hyper focused on our kids having these awesome, amazing, perfect experiences all the time. And the reality we were facing is that that's history. And so the focus became making sure they're not starving, they're not thirsty. There are things that they can do to entertain themselves. And in the first 2 weeks, we also had no direction from our school system, excuse me, about how to make that happen. And we thought our kids were going to become idiots within the first 10 school days. None of that happened. And what we tried to do rapidly, my wife and I, is to just focus on the things that we thought were working and getting rid of the things in our day that weren't working with work life and kids. I think for what we do in our profession is we're constantly trying to manage events outside of our control and outside of our clients' control. So for me, this just became a new event. And I looked at it as just an event. And the key has become to adapt to that and make it kind of part of my professional focus. So my children have become kind of like that really crazy, erratic client that calls me throughout the day about problems I didn't think were a problem. So I love them to death, but they become something I've had to manage. And I've just accepted that reality. There are a few colleagues at KW and elsewhere that I keep in touch with, and I'll write them on occasion because our social media feed is filled with these glowing, sparkling pandemic experiences people are having with their children. I'm honestly not having those. I have a business that I'm trying to maintain productivity in, and it's actually been growing during the crisis. So I touch base with them and I ask them, this isn't all what you're all experiencing, right? And they'll write me, no, this sucks. And we've just embraced that. For us, the real key to my wife having a good work day and me having a good work day is we share calendars. So I share a calendar with my team and my wife is on that calendar. She can see what I'm doing. I can see what she's doing. And we time block. So I know we've talked about time blocking before as agents and how useful it is. And it's absolutely key to being focused and productive, but even more so during a time like this. If I can handle breakfasts and I can handle their lunches and she can handle the time block of education during a day, all we need to worry about is dinner. And in the meantime, my kids, at least, they're 9 and 7, they're surprisingly capable of entertaining themselves. And one day I even rushed upstairs because I have alarms that go off for lunch to make it for them. And they were making their own lunch and they were actually doing a really good job. So there are parts of this experience that have taught me that in some things where we thought we had to be constantly micromanaging, we're actually a little bit irrelevant. And, I gained 45 minutes of productive client time that afternoon when I realized that. So I think it's understanding that nothing's going to be perfect, embracing that, and relying on the tools that we have developed as practitioners in our business to stay focused. Creating focus space for me means being organized. It always has been. If I'm organized, I have the room to focus on the events that come out of left field constantly throughout the day, and I'm able to resolve them.
So then for the agents that are watching, whether you have kids or not, if you could offer them 5 minutes of here's what I do to be successful every day, what would that be?
So for me, it comes down to every time when I wake up in the morning, I have to know what I need to be doing that day and where I need to be going. So at its root core, you have to have some method of tracking your tasks, a task management system, and you have to have a calendar. These don't all have to be digital. I've done this in a 3-ring binder, but when I joined your team, obviously that was not going to be something that could work. And when you work with other people, it's just not efficient. So I've divided up my tasks through two systems, essentially. There's everything that involves a client that I'm actively working with, or a lead or a prospect. And that's in my client management database, whatever that may be. There's a way you can tag that toward your specific client, lead, or prospect. So they're in there. And then I have one for tasks that are personal or they're business related that don't involve a specific individual. And those I use in just, you can use any free app. I happen to use Todoist. You can get it for free to start. And if you do click on a task that you've not completed and it goes away, you have to upgrade to premium and buy Todoist. So that's how they kind of suck you in. But it's a great tool. You can set up projects. You can have tasks recurring. You can involve your spouse or your teammates at work into that app as well, and you can work together as a group. So that keeps me on track for what I'm supposed to be doing all day. And then my calendar is shared again with my colleagues and spouse, and that tells me where I need to be going. On a very particularly busy day where I need to create more focus space, I'm going to be time blocking tasks into my calendar. So if I have an inspection report and I absolutely have to review it today, there's going to be a 1 hour block in my calendar for that inspection report. My colleagues know I'm tied up and I'm busy focusing on something. Of course, you know, throughout the day now with children at home, they're not on my calendar. They're going to dart in and show me the most awesome Lego creation they ever made. I have to spend a minute with them and go back to work. So that keeps me focused on what I need to be doing and where I need to be going. When I'm driving and I can't access these tools, I'll use voice to text and just email myself messages. It's going to be an event that I need to document or a reminder for something. So I can kind of put that back out of my mind, and rest assured when I get back to my computer, I'm going to see it and I can assign that task or make that note. And there are two other things I do almost without fail, and I strongly recommend these. At the end of the day, I do a self-debriefing, and I'm making sure that I'm communicating effectively and that I'm closing loose ends. That means I'm reviewing everything in my inbox. I am going through all my voicemails. I'm going through iMessenger and looking at all the messages and exchanges I've had that day. And then I review all my notes I've taken that day, because every note should be something that you need to document, or it's an event you need to add, or it's a task you need to create. Otherwise, it's not relevant. And then what I do then after I do a debriefing is I look at my day ahead, the next day, and I spend a good 10 minutes planning my following day. I'm looking to make sure my day is realistic and manageable. The more consistently you are organized, you have this humbling sense of what you're actually capable of doing. So if I've got 20 tasks in my Todoist and I've got 20 tasks in my CRM, I know I'm overloaded. And when I look at my calendar, you can also tell if you're overloaded. But you're going to get that sense with your tasks too. And so I create my next day before I go to sleep, and I have better sleep as a result of that.
So I know for me, one of the big disappointments in the pandemic was that I didn't get a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I sort of stepped into this when all of the first things started coming out, and, you know, there was a lot of talk, but not a whole lot of information, and certainly no experience. I sort of made peace with the idea that there was going to be 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks of nothing to do. And it turned out I was a little bit caught off guard. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, this time this year compared to this time last year, what is work like? How many leads are you getting? How many contracts are you writing? How many deals are you closing if you compared non-pandemic springtime to pandemic springtime?
That's very interesting. I was shocked too, because when this all started, I remember looking at the database and seeing when the last lead registered. And there was a period of about 48 hours, 56 hours where no one registered and new leads. And that was very concerning because it's been a long time since I've seen something like that before. And I remember on 9/11, I remember that morning I was due to make my cold calls. And everything just stopped on a dime. And it was very reminiscent of that. For me, though, when we talk about weeks or events like this that happen, whether it's an election or it's a recession or it's pandemic, there's always work to be done. I have a list of back burner stuff that's working on my business that sometimes I can't get to for months. And so there's always something in front of me or I can put in front of me to do. And so my winter was setting up for a great 2020. And when pandemic hit, there was about 2 weeks of real eerie silence. And then everything just exploded. My spring is probably double what it was last year. And my year may very well be double what it was in 2019. In the first 2 weeks of pandemic, I was thinking that I was going to have maybe I was going to have my last year and have it on repeat. I was determined though, I committed to myself to put in the extraordinary effort I was planning on putting in for this year. And it has paid off tremendously. I wound up with clients who, for a variety of reasons, the pandemic wasn't hitting them or hurting them. It was actually an opportunity for them to go out and look at homes because they were working from home. And I wound up with a fair number of those. And it simply has not stopped. From a personal perspective, it's amazing to see. And so the tools I have adopted and created before have made this possible, that I can do this from home. You know, there are times when I have a client who's late to an appointment right now, and I'm actually grateful because I can turn my car into a mobile office within a minute, and I can do 30, 45 minutes of good work before they show up to a showing. And it's been taking opportunities like that that have been important. I think too, with kids or whatever your personal life is, if it means that your focus time has to be 8 p.m. to midnight, then so be it. But you'll get through it. And if you're getting through it the right way, your business should be stronger as a result and not weaker.
And then I'm just going to ask you one more question before we switch over to Robin Marine. If you were to characterize where your leads are coming from in terms of database from the past, new leads coming from online, Sphere, what do you think that mix is? Where are they coming from?
Online definitely is the plurality of those leads. I would say probably 50% is going to be online. And then I have on the other half, it's going to be Sphere and referrals. I've been very, very fortunate to have other supportive agents in other market centers think of me when they're on a board somewhere, on a messaging group somewhere else, and they mention my name. It's just been, I've been very fortunate to know just awesome people.
All right. So if I was to take away one thing from you, and I have the advantage of being able to see his calendar, is it is completely time blocked. There is the time for private life. He has breakfast and lunch scheduled in there. He has all the other items, and it's the amount of white space with nothing on it is very, very small. And it can even be things that we wouldn't think to put in because who needs to be reminded to eat lunch? Most of the time I'm thinking about it before it's due, but it is all in there and blocked out. So that is, I think, a key piece there. Now I want to switch over to Robin Marine. Robin Marine have been with us since the beginning, and despite being Hegarty-Perry, are married. And they live together and work together. And if you see how they're sort of happy looking here, this is how they look all the time. And I really am curious how that happens. But I kind of want to start you out with the same sort of questions. You know, what did you guys find challenging when you have an office in the office and now you can't access it? What did you find challenging as you switched in terms of changing how your work life operated?
Well, in terms of challenging, I think that the first thing was, much as Jason mentioned, there was this apprehension about what the pandemic was going to mean. And in conjunction with what working from home would mean for our business. And we found the same thing after a very brief spell of sort of getting our bearings. Things went on in terms of productivity as normal. We too are having a better spring and summer than we have enjoyed in years past. Working from home, I was really hopeful, much as you indicated, that there would be a downtime where we could work on our business and get to some of these things that we had never been able to find time to do. And that just wasn't the case. And so very quickly, I found a routine that worked for me and a dedicated workspace at home. We do have the situation where we don't have children in the house, which makes for a much less distracting circumstance. But we do have dogs that occupy a great deal of our time, and can be a spontaneous distraction. So just finding a quiet place to work from home and recognizing that things weren't coming completely unhinged sort of set us up to just carry through.
We do also have the benefit of being a household that we both doing the same thing. We both have a common goal and focus. So it's not as if we have a partner that is, is trying to get something else done in a different way, in a different business. We do the same thing. So when we have conversations, we're able, when we're having downtime, we're also able to make that downtime sometimes into mini meetings. We do often take walks and just enjoy some actual downtime away from the business, so that our home life can still have the feeling of being a sanctuary, not just a workplace.
And, I've asked you guys this question before, but you had more freedom back then to be separate. How do you not hate each other from being together so much? I have vague memories of being in relationships with other people, and they felt like a lot of work. And you guys work together, you live together, you're married, you have dogs to raise. I think you're working on building a new house together.
Yeah.
You have a lot of responsibilities that end with the word together. And I'm just curious, has that been hard? Did you actually have to make a decision about, we're going to do this to manage stress in our life? And what was that?
I don't think we made a decision together. I think we both sort of managed like for me, and I have to say I'm humbled by Jason's description of his workday. That is something I could aspire to and never even approach. But I do rely heavily on a routine in the morning and a schedule, and I get up and it looks no different than it did when I would be going to the office. The only thing that I did start doing, sort of put into my morning routine, is I take about 10 or 15 minutes and remind myself of how fortunate we are. And sometimes that takes the edge off of the little, things that start off as a minor annoyance, whether it's the work from home or the cohabitation or the dogs or the client, and puts it in perspective that we are very, very fortunate. And Maureen and I are very fortunate to have each other, and I would be lost without her. And she's very easy to love and very hard to get upset with for any prolonged period of time. So that's my secret.
Good answer.
This is being recorded, Maureen, so you can play that back.
So that's wonderful. It's also, Rob and I are so very, very different. We complement each other in lots of wonderful ways. And, together we're just so much stronger than when we're separate, when we're working separately. We do tend to gravitate towards one client or the other. We start out and usually a client will either gravitate toward Rob or me, and then we kind of take a hold of each one, and we sort of do those transactions on our own. But we confer with one another and still work together. But I think that's one of our biggest strengths, is that we are so very different, and we have a lot to offer our clients. So, working together is really, for me, it's the only way to have a successful real estate business. We started in 2007, and everyone said, "Oh, you don't want to do this now. The market is horrible. There's no point." And I think that's really in part what's helped us during the pandemic, is that we started when it was really not easy. And you know, we know how to work very hard, and we do know how to work together and rely on each other's strengths and help each other in our weaknesses. And so it's worked out very well.
And so one of the questions I'd like to bring forward for you guys too, if you had one specific piece of advice in terms of do this for all the 100 some odd agents on the call that would make their day better in terms of being productive and keeping their business moving, what would that piece of advice be?
Go ahead.
For me, it would be pretend it's just, or don't pretend, treat it as another work day. Get up at the time you're supposed to get up, do what you're supposed to do to get ready for work, dress for work as if you were going to be meeting clients, and know exactly what the task is. If you know, I start by making a list of all the things that need my attention, be they work related or personal, and then I schedule it out. And when I'm at my best, that includes the lead generation component, which is critical, and just treat it as if it's a hot market and there's tons of business out there to grab onto, and you know, you are your own boss, so hold yourself accountable and get the job done, and the business will follow, the money will come in.
Yeah, and I'm very goal oriented. And so I like to have a stated goal each day. And as Rob said, we start with gratitude every day. And that really helps me to keep my focus, that I know that if I do what I'm supposed to do, and if I'm purposeful about what I do when I do it, the results will follow. So, and I do believe, I learned this early on, that what you do today will show up for you in 90 days. So if I don't do anything in 90 days, nothing is going to come, right? So I need to be always thinking of what can I do now to make sure that in 90 days, I'm going to be having the results that I want to have. And staying goal oriented, this can weed a lot of other agents out, quite frankly, you know, this kind of thing. And the strong agents and the agents that are focused on success are going to succeed because they're going to do the right things in a purposeful way. And there are a lot of people out there that need us. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do.
And again, the same sort of question, where do you think the majority of your business comes from? If you were to think over the last 60 days, where are those deals and those leads appearing from?
People love us.
No, so we don't buy leads. We made a decision a long time ago that we don't do any lead purchase programs.
We phased out our last one recently.
It phased itself out, actually.
Yeah, right.
It was the only one that ever actually paid for itself, and so we kept it. But they folded when the pandemic hit. But we so most of our business is first Sphere and referrals from Sphere, and then referrals from within the KW network, and then you know, lastly, you know, the equivalent of sign calls and things of that nature. But
and we love Command. We really have embraced the platform, the Facebook and social media platform where you can do the paid advertising. It's something, I think we figured it out. It tells you, actually, it's like 21 cents a lead. And the tools, we have such amazing tools now. And we're relying on opportunities. We're relying on all the different aspects that Command has to offer. And we're leveraging that to help us get leads. So we've gotten some great online leads since we started using that. And honestly, we didn't really start using it in full until the pandemic set in, and we were given the opportunity to really work on some of those systems and make the most of that. Mm-hmm. So we're really enjoying that too.
I know I've noticed talking to you guys here, and I think I've always known it in the back of my head, but it really stands out looking at the three of us on camera on a screen. one of the things that we have all talked about and that each of you said again today, you have a specific thing you do every morning. And then Jason, you had specifically pointed out at the end of the day, you sort of review your day and how did this go? And I'm curious from any of you, I feel like that's a really key part of my day. I spend a certain amount of time every morning with a cup of coffee and sort of this journal that I actually write things in to decide what is happening today and what my priorities are. And I feel like that really sets me up to move forward, making better decisions through the day. And in this particular journal, which is something inexpensive, I ordered on Amazon, it has a section where you review your day. What did you accomplish? What could you have done better? And then the same thing for the end of your week. And I sometimes think that's a little cheesy. I'm one of those guys that automatically rolls his eyes at the warm and fluffy stuff. On the other hand, I've been doing it because I've been home, and why not?
Right.
And it has been super helpful to me in setting myself up to not let what stopped me on Monday stop me again on Tuesday, or to say, oh my gosh, that worked really well, and now I can highlight it and do it again. And I'm curious from the three of you, those morning and beginning of day and end of day stuff, do you feel similarly? Do you feel like that's an important piece of facing whatever comes your way during the rest of the day?
I think having, whatever the system may be, anything that helps you determine these are my top priorities in the day. Like Rob was saying, in the morning, he's going to look at it and wonder what are the key things. It's absolutely crucial, because there are going to be 10 things that come in front of you that you really didn't expect. And in the back of my mind, I only need to remember, okay, of those 15 items on my list this morning, there are 2 that are critical. So when I have the free moments, the half hour of downtime, I'm working on those when I'm not putting out all these other fires that showed up this morning. So absolutely. I think prioritization is part of that, and knowing what's key. And I also think that, people have told me and shared with me their other systems, or they've gotten way too focused on what I do. And I'm a big believer in that. It really doesn't matter what you do, so long as you're doing something and so long it's working for you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the other thing I think that's critical and that I have to remind myself is that there's not going to be a point where suddenly you get it right, and from then on you get it right every day, And so, this is a learning, perfecting, failing forward sort of life is in general. And so what you do is you do your very best, and you take away from that what works, and you make adjustments. But you can't beat yourself up because Monday you fell down on the job and you didn't schedule your day right, or you weren't productive. It just means you pick yourself up and you do a better job Tuesday. But yes, scheduling, making some sort of a definitive, given a definitive idea of what has to be done that day and the direction you're heading in with each of these tasks, and then being able to execute on those is absolutely, of supreme importance, at least for me.
And I can be a bit of a butterfly or a bat, just kind of like all over the place.
You're a butterfly.
And so for me, it's really important to have that structure ahead of time. And I'm very forgiving of myself. So when I fail, I do really look at that as not so much a failure, but an opportunity to do something better and different the next time. And I think that it's helpful to remind myself that, as Rob said, you're not going to get it right every single time. And these are all sort of building blocks to help you become a better agent and to better serve your clients. Because when you maybe have a challenging situation with one client and you work through it, or you don't, you're able then to take that scenario and apply it in a different way for another client and hopefully do a better job. So I think having a structure for me, and like you said, Quentin, you know, if you write down the things that you did well and maybe the things that you did have challenges with, and then reflect on those later on, you can see certain patterns, and you can work on certain areas and say, well, that really worked, I'm going to try it again. And then ultimately we become better, stronger agents.
I know, Rob, when you say gratitude, I think sometimes we've had so much media talk about gratitude that it has sort of numbed us a little bit. But it is really helpful for me when, you know, you start your day off, you have this great plan, and then 9 really important things sort of jump on you and shatter it. Starting off in the morning is helpful to know, okay, I can't ditch these 2 things that I started with. I must do these. But starting off with a little bit of gratitude is also really important in staying even keeled. And remembering that, you know, my longest term job was being a nurse practitioner. And I remind myself every once in a while that nobody dies in real estate. You know, that's not what happens. And so I try to take a deep breath and move on. And a lot of my gratitude comes from the people I interact with. You know, it's been interesting to me how many folks I've gotten to meet on Zoom, how they have done small things that have helped me be grateful for my ability to keep working and for the people I work with. I have this really, really great memory. If you go way back in time, I suppose it's not way, way back, but it's a ways for me. When I was first in Charlottesville, I'd returned to real estate after decades of not being in it, so I might as well have been new. We were in our old building, which was a little bit of a hovel. And I had this office in a corner in the back with no window. It had a transom window, but it had a tree in front of it, so there was no natural light. And it had just been a terrible week. And I had already taken 9 months off of work. And so I was watching my savings account shrink. And I was working 4 and 5 hours a day to build websites and do lead generation and meet people, but I didn't have a big sphere in Charlottesville. And I had to drive quite a ways to show a property. And I was actually sort of juggling, like, for the amount of gas this costs to go back and forth and time, should I really be doing this? And Maureen walked by and happened upon me. And if she seems like super bubbly, like she's taken a bunch of Valium on camera, she's like that all the time. That is her generic stance. And she started talking to me, and I was telling her what was going on. And she's like, well, but you're going to go, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go. It's just, you know, frustrating. And she came back, and there was a $10 bill in her hand, and she had written on it, "You are going to succeed." And she shoved it onto my board with a thumbtack over my face. And you have no idea how much that brightened me up, to the point where I saved that $10 bill. I found another way to put gas in the car. And it has carried with me forward on how much of an effect we can have on one another in small things we do, in reminding one another how much we do have to be grateful for, and that there is so much support around us. One of my favorite things about everything that's gone on in the last 5 or 6 weeks is there's 100 of us right here, right now, sort of sharing this conversation. And I've gotten to learn so much about agents across our region and feel so much more connected to the larger entity that is Keller Williams in Virginia and West Virginia than I ever did in the past, because I'm hearing people's stories, I'm hearing some of their perspectives, I'm hearing the things that they do. And so that is one of the things that I am very grateful for in the midst of all of this. You know, we know things about one another because virtually we're coming into one another's homes at least once a week, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, to share what's working and to do this. And so those are one of the things that I am certainly grateful for, and one of the practices that I hope we continue to have this opportunity to gather together like this in a way that's so simple. Which leads me to my last question before I kick it back to Joe. And I'm going to start with Rob and Maureen because they're all big on the screen and pretty looking. And that is, you know, when this moves forward, because this will move forward. We're going to go into a new world, and we're going to have to be careful because we don't want to catch or spread the virus. We all know that. What are things that have changed from before to now that you hope we keep? What would be something of value from this that you want to carry forward with you into the rest of your business?
Well, for me, I think that I probably will balance working from home and working at the office. Before, there was this sense that I had to be at the office to really get a full, good, solid work day in. But going to the office had its own built-in distractions, and it also is about a 45, 50-minute round trip. So there's an hour of the workday that's not necessarily productive. And so I'm really encouraged to find how much I can get done and how much I can maintain focus working at home without compromising our home life. So that's it for me, probably.
I'm personally thrilled that I don't have to put clients in my car. And you know, I know that's silly.
Awesome.
I also feel that I'm going to enjoy working from home more, but we'll be living closer to town, so that will be helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason, is there one thing that was new for you since this happened that you hope continues on?
I think the realization that we can all work very effectively, and we're in a team, and not be present in the same room is very important. And I've met and established really strong bonds with new clients over Zoom or over the phone, sharing documents. They've been able to take action without being in the same room with me. And I think for everyone at large, for the entire economy, I hope that's something that kind of endures through all of this. And granted, I do have exceptional teammates. We have an assistant in our team that just hasn't missed a beat and is as on top of things as he was when he was right there in the office next to me. And that's truly a gift, I think.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. We've got about 12 minutes left. And so I'm gonna go ahead and give you one more piece of advice. And then I'm gonna pass it back to Joe so he can wrap us up. For me, the hardest thing was in my initial transition was really focusing in on one thing and spending time to get it done. And there's a good friend of mine in town. Her name is Sasha Farmer. She runs her own small brokerage, really energetic, just really, really a nice lady and very honest about how she went from doing very poorly to recognizing she wasn't doing well by her clients, then sort of realizing that she was in control and you have to make a choice every day about how your day is going to be. And one of the things she just sort of threw at me that I initially thought was silly, and then I've been trying it for the last week or so, is the Pomodoro Method. And basically, you can look it up online, the Pomodoro Method, and it is 25-minute increments of focusing on your top 5 tasks. So there's a timer that you can use online for free. And for that 25 minutes, you don't read your text messages. You don't read the email that has come in. You stay focused on that one task that was important enough to make it to the top of your list. And at the end of that 25 minutes, it'll bing. You get 5 minutes off, get a cup of coffee, stretch your legs, whatever it is, wash your hands, because we all do that all the time. And then come back and do it again for the next task. You go through 2 of those cycles, you get a longer break. Go through 3 of them, you get lunch. And it's amazing how just the realization of how much time we lose when we try to respond to every small thing as it comes in and then return. And so if you can't do anything else and you can't seem to get control of your list, look up Pomodoro online and promise yourself that for 4 times a day, you will obey that timer and focus on your top 5 list. And I will bet you will see that those big rocks that we dread so much, they get out of the way. I know many of you that are on this Zoom call, and am so proud of all of you and have seen how amazing and how special you can be. And so I really want everybody to come through this set up to be even more successful than when it started. I want you to remember that we do work everywhere. So this is just another place to work. And I want you to know that there are people out there that need you, because they will find somebody, and you guys are amazing, and I want them to find you. So thank you all for spending a little bit of time with us today and listening to us yammer on. And Joe, I'll leave it to you to wrap up.
Thank you, Quentin, for facilitating that. Jason, Maureen, and Rob, thank you for the time today and really giving back to the agents. So really thank you. You guys are doing some wonderful things down there in Charlottesville. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So we've got the agent preparedness call for next Friday at 10 a.m. We'll have Amina Basic out of our Northern Virginia office running point on that. And then on June 5th, Dave Donaldson and I will be doing a train the virtual presenter. So we'll be putting together some training for everyone on what are the best tactics when doing a Zoom presentation, from setting it up, the technology, and also how do you keep people engaged and whatnot. So that'll be an awesome class on June 5th, as well as Amina's on the 29th. So let's keep going. Mastermind. So there is a spring mastermind being put on by Keller Williams International. If you are in MAPS coaching, there is no charge. If you are not in MAPS coaching, it will be $49. It is a 2-day course. You'll have it on June 8th from 11 to 1, and then from 2 to 4, and then June 9th from 11 to 1, and then 2 to 4. So this is $49. We'll send out the link. You can register now on kw.com for that. Once again, it'll be $49 for the spring masterminds. And then finally, just to wrap up, with Memorial Day coming up this weekend, I just wanted to recognize that, say thank you for everybody that is our service members and veterans. And to wrap up, hopefully everybody has a great weekend, get some recharge, and we're here, and once again appreciate the region pulling together and the agents helping us through these challenging times. So from there, have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.